I want to tell you a story that is nearly 3 years in the making. A story about drive and determination, redemption and grit, Aussie versus American, Tenz versus Vertikull, and the greatest Destiny speedrun race you've never heard of. Before we get too involved in the actual race, I want to make sure you're caught up on this particular speedrun, the records held, and strategies used. The date is December 18th, 2014, and SC Slayerage shook the Destiny community by being the first person ever to beat a raid solo. After this, more and more people also were able to easily solo this raid. And as time progressed, people began to understand how much you can bend this raid's rules. And if you know anything about video games, you know that if there are rules you can bend, speedrunners will break them. Now, if you know Destiny, you know that Crota's End, and Destiny as a whole, went through a pretty major change on March 28th, 2017 with the Age of Triumph update. I'm not going to cover the speedrun results of pre-Age of Triumph, but once the update went through, the solo Crota speedrunners suddenly went from having a run that was around 8 minutes to around 12 minutes. A lot of people ran this category, but the one I want to focus on today is a guardian named Tenz. Now, one thing to know about Tenz, he had a special place in his heart for Crota. He ran it. A lot. For thousands of attempts, the rogue Aussie lowered and lowered his personal best from a humble 1609 to 2 world records. First was a 1206, and then the legendary 12-minute barrier was broken with an 1151. Yes, Tenz was the first in the world to beat Age of Triumph solo Crota in under 12 minutes. This was a fairly big achievement in the Destiny community. Tenz even put up a $100 bounty out to see if anyone could beat his new time. Who was going to do it? Nine months to the day later, the speedrunner Baxley beat this time with an 1146. Now, for anyone who knows speedrunning, you know what's about to happen. Tenz is about to come back with a vengeance and retake his world record, right? Right? No. Baxley had some really good luck in his run that made beating it a severely difficult challenge. Tenz continued to make attempts for weeks. The grind continued, but no new times were set. After a while, Tenz started to get really bad pain in his thumbs, and due to health reasons, had to quit speedrunning altogether. With Baxley being satisfied with his time, almost all the higher-end runners moving to Destiny 2, and Tenz having to bow out, the solo Crota speedrun, held by Baxley, would go largely untouched for nearly 3 years. Now comes the part where I write myself into this video. After the snooze fest that was Beyond Light in Destiny 2, I had decided to hop back onto Destiny 1 and try my hand at solo Crota speeds. I had a pretty awful time of 14 minutes and 16 seconds, but with a few Destiny 1 runners coaching me, my time and technique started to improve. One little bit of history, at that time, I had very little knowledge of Destiny speedrunning or speedrunners. I had never met Tenz, and I knew nothing about his epic progression to the world record. All I knew was that then he had the world's second fastest time. A few dozen attempts later, I get a 1245. Not anything super impressive, but at the time it was good enough for 5th in the world and to submit to speedrun.com. This was when I was fully committed to grinding out times. With Destiny 1 speedrunning being extremely quiet, I thought for sure I would have no competition. But I had no idea what I had awakened. After I set my personal best of 12 minutes 31 seconds on January 2nd, that's when I first found Tenz, and I knew this was going to be special. So I got to work. I grinded 8 hours a day, mostly on stream, to try and lower my time before Tenz could reclaim his crown. On January 3rd, I got a 12-minute 9-second. On January 5th, I became the third person ever to beat the 12-minute barrier with an 1154. I was 8 seconds behind world record, but it happened. While I was grinding my heart out, trying to lower my time, 6 hours after my new personal best, Tenz broke Baxley's 3-year-old world record with an 1133. Tenz didn't have a capture card at the time, but that didn't slow him down. As his attempt counter got higher, his time just got better and better. I had a lot of people asking me if this new time was beatable. I knew it was, but I also knew who I was going up against. I was squaring up against one of, if not the best, Crota runners alive. The day after Tenz's new record, on January 7th, 2021, I hit an 11:42. I had missed world record by 1 day. Heartbreaking is an understatement, but what happened the next day fired up this race like never before. Remember how I said that there was a lot of time that could be saved? Well, Tenz knew this. He knew the updated strats, and he knew his 11:33 could be improved on, and got to work. This is when the race started to get serious. No longer were there any massive time saves available. Gold splits were going to become increasingly more rare. If the solo Crota world record wanted to be lowered, it was going to come down to skill, grit, and who could hold their nerve deep into runs. Later that same day, I hit a run and got this time. I think that's it. I think that's world record. I think that's world record. That might be. I don't know. Don't call it just yet. Don't call it just yet. Tied world record! Are you kidding me? 11:33. 11 freaking 33. No, it's not. I split early. Yes. A tied world record. For the first time in Destiny history, the solo Crota world record had been tied to the second. During this run, I had a Speedrun.com moderator watching me, and he confirmed that the Destiny speedruns were timed to the full second. So even if one of us were slightly faster than the other, it would be counted as a dead tie. Now the question remained, how long would this tie stand for? Who would be the first person to break it and become world champion? As the attempt counter started to grow, more and more days passed without a world record. This was getting ridiculous. Tenz was knocking on 11:20's door, and I was in Crota for nearly 10 hours a day trying to improve my time. But honestly, it was anyone's game. At this point, the Destiny community could witness a new world record at any time. It was going to happen, but the time and the runner was anyone's guess. On January 11th, Tenz finally broke the 11:30 barrier, and for the fourth time in his Destiny career, he had taken the solo Crota world record. Tenz was dominating the category, and it didn't help anything that on the following day, January 12th, I hit an 11:29. For the third time in a week, I had either tied world record or missed it by a single day. To say I was frustrated is putting it extremely lightly. Neither of us were slowing down. Our attempts grew and grew, but a few days later, Tenz proved he was the master of solo Crota by becoming the first Guardian ever to beat the world record with a 10:54. Sub 11 was real. This was absurd. How could he have saved that much time? I mean, when you watch his runs, his technique and strategies don't drastically change. What was going on? To be honest, Tenz is just built different. He grinded his heart out over years and thousands of attempts. He found out little intricacies of Crota that no one else knew, and he just became better than anyone else. And with no competition, with no one else remotely close to challenging his world record, a few days later, Tenz put up a 10:48 for the Destiny community to see. Like I said, this man's just built different. As for my time, I eventually got an 11:22, which at the time of making this video is where my PB currently stands. I've had a few runs that could have been 11:05-ish, and one run that was potentially a 10:58, but nothing to challenge the world record. While we both were running before and after, I consider this race to begin on January 2nd and ended on January 12th. These 10 days were filled with an estimated 80 hours of play, 600 attempts, 2 world records, 3 missed world records, and 1 tied world record. It was a fun race that I'm honored to be a part of, but in the end, there are very few activities in Destiny that have been dominated like Tenz has to solo Crota. I came close a couple times, but at the time of making this video, Tenz's 1048 still sits on top, and it doesn't look like it'll be beaten anytime soon. I've spoken with a few top runners, and some optimizations have been found that could potentially drop the record to somewhere in the mid or even low 1020s. Maybe Baxley will rejoin the fun. Maybe RNGesus will finally smile on me for once. Maybe Tenz will get the speedrun bug again, or maybe a new runner will emerge and blow us all out of the water. Who knows? But one thing we do know is that at the beginning of 2021, the Destiny community was treated to a very rare speedrun race, and I can only hope there are more like it in the future. Congrats, Tenz, you're a freaking legend. And thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time.